The following program is a production of Naleo TV.
Aloha and welcome to the Audrey Wilson Cooking Show. I am so excited because look what I have. I have two nice Kampachi, and my friend here is Daren. Daren is a marine biologist. In what company is that?
Ocean Era?
Ocean Era, and they're located in Otech.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit of what you do there at your company.
So at Ocean Era, I'm the area and broodstock manager, and we have done several types of research with particularly Kampachi over the last 10 years or so that I've been with the company. Most of our early focus was on developing diets for these fish that it was meant for to be more sustainable, looking at alternative sources of protein. Currently right now, most fish around the world that are farmed do have to have some diet based on bait fish or.
And you don't want to use too much bait fish because you don't want to use up that resource?
Correct.
I was at the university up here and they were experimenting with some kind of grass.
We're not looking at grass. A lot of our fish are marine fish and they tend to be carnivores like the Kampachi. And it's really hard to do a diet based on a plant base for this type of fish.
Yeah, that's true.
But we have done a lot of work with looking at alternative sources of oil that come from marine microalgae. We also looked at land-based proteins, maybe from other industries, and we looked at how they perform. So it gets recycled in the system. You don't have to put more pressure in the environment.
Right.
And that's one of the things that attract me to the work in the company is that I have grown around aquaculture all my life.
Right. I know your father is also a marine biologist or into this whole thing, right?
He's a specialist in shrimp aquaculture.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to grow with him and learn about it. And I wanted to also make my way into the aquaculture. So I had the opportunity to work with PACRAC over here in UH Hilo. And it was fantastic for several years. I worked with the university doing oyster research, but I also did a little bit of shrimp research and fish research earlier on.
When you want a great meal, local style, turn on the Leo and sit a while. Watch and listen, then you'll know just how to do it on Audrey Wilson's Cooking Show.
These fish most likely came from the commercial operation called Blue Ocean Mariculture. A lot of my work and a lot of the work we do at Ocean Era right now is research-based. So while we have some avenues for some products that are going into the market in the future, like the Nenue, which we've been working a lot for the last few years, and as well as the limu, especially all these algae like the calurpa, the ogo, the sea grapes, lepe ohina, and it's a really good red algae that you can also cook with it, and it's really, really fantastic.
Wow. So you do the research and then somebody else goes and grows?
Yes, right now we're looking to maybe have our unit as a research unit and maybe see where we can spin off a company in the future. That's my boss, Neil Sims. He is actually looking into the avenues to make these products that we can do here in Hawaii, available for the market, not only for the local community, but across the world.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Do you want to cut some?
One of the main starts for cleaning the fish is to gut them out. So this is a nice sized fish. Well, you start from the back.
Yeah.
I don't know if it needs a view for that. You start opening the gut cavity.
Okay.
And this is a really nice sharp knife, so I'm able to cut through the bones all the way to the top. This is how I usually do it. I cut a little bit around this area here.
Yeah.
And then I can open the whole fish.
Nice.
And you can see this is a little fatty. This is one of the reasons they're farmed too, is because Kampachi is in the same lineage of the almaco jack, like the hamachi. Once I get to that part, I try to open a little bit the over here underneath the tongue of the fish.
Yeah.
And I try to get the the gill plate, all the way down to the back of it.
Interesting story about
and then
Kampachi is
I can pull all the guts out.
Is that it is actually kahala, right?
Yes.
And we, growing up, we couldn't eat kahala because we had so much worms and it had ciguataria and all of that.
Yes.
So now when you farm raise it, we're able to eat it with no danger of ciguataria or worms.
So both ciguatera and the worms is a factor of the environment. And actually the worms that we observe in the kahala, in the wild kahala,
Yeah.
are actually only one step in their life cycle, because ultimately the last cycle of that is sharks. So it goes from sharks to the bottom of the ocean and it moves up the food chain.
Yeah.
While they're not exactly pleasant to see, they're not exactly, if you ate it by accident, it wouldn't be too bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
No,
I'd rather eat it.
I wouldn't want to
farm
eat it
raised.
personally, but on the other hand, ciguatera, that is very dangerous. I had a friend that got a ciguatoxin, and that was because a lot of these are predator fish, like I mentioned earlier. These are like top of the food chain, or at least really close to the top of the food chain. They bioaccumulate the toxins. So the bigger, the larger, and the more predatory, the more it does.
So is that like an air bladder or what is
Yes,
that?
this right here is the air bladder of the fish. It's still attached to it.
Yeah.
If anybody ever like Asia, they take it out completely. They do really nice work,
Yeah.
and I don't know how they cook it out there. I haven't
Really?
done much of the cooking, but I remember being in
Eating
Thailand.
air
and-
bladder.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it was sold everywhere. I was like, I'm impressed by it.
And that's not very much though. That's
No.
a lot of fish you have to get for.
Yeah, that's the other good thing about working with Kampachi is that it yields a lot of fillet, and there's not as bony as some other reef fish. So
Interesting.
my next step from here will be to actually start doing the cut along the bottom part of the fillet,
Okay.
all the way back to the tail, and this makes it really nice later on when I actually gonna skin it off.
So with Kampachi, it's better to take the skin off. Is it a
Not
tough-
exactly.
It has scales too.
It has the scales, but it's almost like salmon scales. You know, if you ever
Oh.
deep fry it really good and
It's fine.
nice and crispy,
Yeah.
yeah. You can scale it out. It looks like the guy's already been scaled out, most of it.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, they did a job on that.
Okay.
And it makes it really, really good to eat. I like to clean up my fish a little bit. So the next step is to actually get around the ribs, the front part of it, all the way to the top of the head. This is how I mostly do it. And right here around
Yeah,
the dorsal fin.
there is a bone there, right?
Yeah, there is a bone. There's bones all the way over here.
Okay.
Some fillet people like to actually, when they're filleting, they like to go around the bones when they do the fillet. I usually do the ribs afterwards because for me, I like to save them. And if I have several fish that I don't for the day, I can make a nice little fried out and just pick the meat out of the bones.
Yeah, that's good too.
So I go again from around this side of the fillet, the other side. Sometimes I have to move you. All the way to the top of the head again. And the last part is to clean the fillet and the top. And longer blades, depending on the size of the fish, are nice because you can do a
slice.
yeah, not only one slice, but you can do like long, nice cuts.
Yeah.
Something if you guys are feeling at home, please never point backwards the blade to you. Always point it away towards the fish.
You don't get stabbed.
Don't want to get stabbed because I've seen some
Yeah,
new people learning, and they almost get stabbed. So I prefer not to indicate, hey, just do the cut here. No, there's a reason why we do certain cuts certain way.
Well, you're a good cutter because you're close to the bone.
Yes, that's what that's why I
You're
try
not
to.
wasting a lot of meat.
I grew up fishing with my dad, and we catch kahala also, and without too many worms in Ecuador. Yeah. And guess who was the one cleaning the fish at the end of the day?
You.
Yeah.
Your dad's like, okay, we caught this fish. You clean the fish.
Yeah, and then you pull out the first fillet part of it.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then I move around to the next side to do the same kind of cut.
Yeah.
It's okay. I got you, buddy. There you go. So the next fillet comes out too as well. There's many ways to skin the fish.
Okay.
One of the ways I like to do it while it's still the fish together is to actually
Keep it.
keep this part connected to it.
Ah, I see.
Break out a little bit the backbone there.
Yeah.
And because it's nice and flat to the ground,
Yeah.
I can go from behind. This is where a longer blade actually comes a little
I see.
handy.
I understand now why you said you wanted a longer blade.
Depends on how thick it is. If it's a
Yeah.
smaller fish, blades doesn't really matter. So it comes out like that.
Nice.
And I do the same thing with the other fillet.
Okay.
And I go from behind. And I try to move all the way up to the end of the into the ribs. Now, once you're doing that, all you have left is the carcass. Most of the time, most people throw these away.
Soup.
Exactly. If you want to do soup, even if you just want to do the front part where it has the most meat, this is perfect. Now, if you have a grill, you can come from here with another knife or something bigger.
Yeah.
Cut it out, spread it out over the grill. You have
There's a lot of meat right over there.
there is all the meat in the collar right here.
The collar is great.
And there is the meat in the cheeks. There's all the meat in here. It's perfect for soup.
Yeah.
If you do all of that, if you want soup out of the ribs too.
Yeah.
There was a company in the mainland a few years back.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it, but they were looking at actually having this machine that rolls out the meat out of the bones by squishing it out and make a hamburger.
Like
Eh.
ground.
Like ground fish. This will be already what I consider a fillet, but you still have a lot of the ribs here.
Yeah.
So the next step for me is to actually cut the little connections of the ribs, and try to find my line along the bones of the ribs.
Mm.
And I just try to find so I can get rid of that.
Oh, great. So
So-
that is all boneless right now.
Yeah,
then.
and like I said before,
Sure,
you
yeah.
can keep this if you want to do soup, or we used to just throw it in the oven with my coworkers and just do like lots of yeah. So the other thing here is they still have some of that bladder.
Bladder.
Yeah. It's not as big as I forgot the type of fish they use in Asia, but it's a type of tropical bait fish that lives in big schools, but it has a really large bladder. So I clean it up, and I find the next set of rib bones right there,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to go and also cut them right around this section in the top. And it's left fillet, right fillet, so you just have to find what side of the fillet you would like to start working with. I'm a right-handed person, so certain fillets I just find it much easier to work with than the other. This one is giving me a hard time. There you go. So these fish are probably
How old?
thinking like 10 to 12 months old. They're just right before being 2,000 grams.
If they get any bigger, does the meat quality change at
Nope.
all? Just
No.
still wonderful.
It's still a wonderful fish. The thing about it is, as any farmer will tell you, there's a right moment for harvest.
Yeah.
And the more or the longer you keep the fish to get them bigger, there's going to be a more feed that you have to give them. And your food conversion ratio starts going down. So during this process right here, I just take out the middle
Bloodline,
section,
Yeah.
the bloodline, and it also has like all of the little bones in the center part. So if you look at this part right here, and if you clean it up a little bit,
Yeah.
this is perfect sashimi. This is one of the main reasons I got it.
Yeah.
So you cut it in like small
Yeah.
sections.
But let's cut it into fillet so I can fry it.
So I will probably have it at. There's two ways to do that. It will be just take out the bones or just cut it in sections here. How will you like it?
Yeah, I want it just to have. I want sections for
Okay.
one person serving about 4 ounces or so. Yeah.
Just about there?
So yeah, that's good.
That's good. So yeah, if you're doing it as a cooking like that, if you want it smaller, I cook it like almost sometimes the size of 4 ounces, yeah. Sometimes I do it like these, like chicken nuggets, and I do it to my son, and he's like, "Oh, this chicken is so good." Sorry, buddy, that's Kampachi. He's like, "Oh, the Kampachi is so good." So I was like, "Okay, that's a good thing." But yeah, good eater, the boy. So.
Yeah, he's a good eater, sure. Okay, we're gonna cut this up, and then we're going to just do a light fry. One of the things with Kampachi is you don't overcook it. There's a lot of oils that'll come out, which you don't want to have it in your pan. You want it in the fish. And then we're gonna serve this. One of the most interesting things is because it's so oily, it works so well with curry. So we're gonna do a curry and rice with Kampachi. So let's finish up cutting, and then we'll start frying, and then we'll get eat it with some curry and rice. How's that sound?
That sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, it's a great way to have this Kampachi. I'm now gonna fry. I put a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper, nothing else, because this fish, it just is so flavorful by itself. And just with a little bit of a neutral oil, like canola oil, vegetable oil. And we're just gonna fry it. We're gonna fry it through. And David's
That's
gonna,
high, yeah. I'm gonna reduce it to
reduce it.
medium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of high.
It is really fatty.
It's a fatty fish, and we don't want to pull out the oils. Tell us about your experience with grilling it because it's so oily. What happened? Did you cremate the fish?
The first time I actually grilled the fish, I was just putting smaller animals, like maybe about pound and a half, pound to pound and a half.
Yeah.
And I was grilling the whole fish.
Yeah.
And they are very fatty, especially in the skin. If you can notice in the fillets that the top part of the skin is nice and very
Beautiful.
oily.
Yeah.
But as soon as it starts melting on the grill and you have an open flame, it really created a nice big flame which charred the skin of the fish.
Wow.
And I was a little taken aback at the first one, but then I figured out after taking it out and doing a couple of sides on it, that char actually sealed the skin out, and it allowed just to be cooked almost through steam, the middle, all the way down to the core.
So was the meat good?
Yeah, it was really perfect.
Really good.
It cooked out nice and white, and it was like flaky, and it was just like, it was perfect for like a grilling.
Yeah.
And you peel that out of the bone, so you're just like, right, good fish. I think for this fish, because it's so fatty, it's always good to accompany with some sort of a carb base. Like, if you have rice is good.
Of course, we have to have rice.
But one of my favorite things here on the island to eat it with is sweet potato. Because the sweet potato,
Sweet.
it gives a nice balance if you're doing something a little bit more spicy with peppers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Balance the flavor, but also allows for all the fat to be soaked back in, and it's really good. And see, now we reduce the flame. You can tell that the oil is still just hot, but it's just cooking right through the fish.
True. Yeah.
Without drying it out.
Yeah, I don't want to dry it out. I want to keep that fat in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna just get it all.
A little bit more.
Good.
And I'm very amazed by the skills of cooking with the chopsticks. I know how to eat with them, but it just never.
I don't want you to get burned, so I got it.
Thank you. Yeah, this is our smaller pieces. I wouldn't go more than 2 minutes on one side, 1 minute on the other. But you can see through, like you can see from the side here that it's really cooked nice.
It's cooked through, yeah.
And it's not leaving try not to avoid the sear. Avoid just going that really fast. Just go cook it out, and then flip it over once it's starting to become nice and white, and to the other side, cook it through, and that cooks it all the way.
See, look at that one. There's a little bit of raw there, but it's still, I would say that's enough.
I will go a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, I will go a little bit more.
Okay.
I did reduce your heat, so I'm still learning how to do this stove.
That's good.
Because the first one was like, oh, that heat up too fast.
Too much, yeah.
So when I cook these or nanue or a lot of the reef fish here in Hawaii, I find that doing the meat heat has been really easy for me to maintain cook it through without actually making too burn the crispy on the outside. Some people really like the crisping of the outside. Sometimes I do that for myself. But it depends on what you're cooking that day. But if I'm doing a grouper or something like it's a little bit more flaky or uhu, the parrotfish, which I haven't done in years, I will actually cook it a little hotter. It's just a different kind of meat texture to it.
Yeah, and the parrotfish, the meat's a little more chewy, right?
Yeah, it's almost like a lobster kind of.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so that you want to
Haven't
cook
had
it
one.
a little bit more
Yeah,
hot.
yeah.
Oh, those look good.
Okay.
That's a good yield from 2 fish.
Yeah, it is. We have enough to feed everybody at the studio here. So what would you say your yield is on a fish that size? That size was about how many pounds?
That was probably right around 3.5, 4 pounds.
So is it like 60% or more?
Probably more like 55. If you think about, if you look at per weight,
Yeah.
it will say 55 because the head and the bones are much denser and heavier. And this is mostly, they're very fatty fish,
Yeah.
and fat doesn't weigh nearly as much per volume.
Right.
So weight-wise, the yield will be like that. But if you look at volume-wise of like from the fish,
yeah,
you're looking at probably about 60+% of the fish is nice.
But if we make soup out of the bones, we get 100% then.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a firm believer to just eat everything of the fish. So I try to keep everything when I'm
especially
processing them.
A fish like this that is so delicious.
Mm-hmm.
And the broth would be an excellent broth. I can tell.
Yeah.
You could make. Have you ever made like Kampachi chowder?
Yes, I have made Kampachi chowder.
It probably would be really good.
That's one of the main goals from keeping the ribs. Like I was mentioning earlier, instead of just leaving the meat on the ribs for later, I usually keep the whole ribs because I can bake them or fry them and then just pull out the meat, and you can make make it into a chowder.
Yeah.
Nice and creamy chowder, and it's just a little bit more fat. You don't throw much cream on it, so you just kind of more soupy style. Like that's
that would be really. I would think that would be really almost.
And growing up in Ecuador, it was I ate fish almost every week somehow. My dad will go fishing, and we'll make soup from all the heads, all the different kinds of fish heads we get.
Wow. Now in Ecuador, what kind of soup is it? Just broth based, or is it cream based?
Depends. There's Ecuador. The main meal during lunchtime is soup across the nation.
Oh, is that right?
So everybody eats soup every day, and that's what I grew up. And there's many kinds of soups. There's creamy soups. There's plantain-based soups. There's all these kinds of soups. There's fish soup. There is goat, sheep, you name it. And with fish, there is one particular dish that is a national dish. It's called encebollado. It's usually made with albacore tuna. And it's the pick-me-up after a night of partying kind of soup at like 10 o'clock in the morning. Soup. Yeah. But at the same time, it's not just that. It's like it became so well appreciated in the nation. When I was growing up, it was like the go-to for even like just in the weekends to hang out with friends. It's like, oh, we're going to go eat lunch, and mid-morning brunch. That 20 years later, since I left Ecuador, I actually find it now in cans. And my mom is like, I'm sending you cans from Florida.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
In my mind, never I would have thought that was possible.
Is it as good?
It is really good.
In the can?
In the can is good.
Oh.
Part of the trick is to actually do this curtido, which is kind of like a pickled onions with just lime juice and salt. And then you put that on top of the soup. And then you eat it with fried plantains, and it's really, really yummy. So
I think we're done.
Yeah, those look really good.
Okay, now what we're going to do is to complete this dish. I like this type of oily fish with curry. I'm going to turn this off, but I'm going to put this here. So I've made a Japanese curry. Get my Japanese curry, which I'm going to heat up. And just a simple curry with some carrots. So I'm going to heat this up, and we're going to serve this with rice and fish.
Perfect.
And just see the combination. And the other thing that I like to serve this with is with fish like this, a curry, and I forgot the kimchi.
Oh, kimchi
But
is
you know,
really
you
good.
talk about pickled onions,
Mhm.
that little bit of,
The vinegary,
Yeah.
that lime, it used to
and
be
it
nice.
just works really well together when you do
Exactly.
this. So I'm gonna heat this up, and then we're gonna get ready for some plating.
Yeah, one thing I don't usually do with Kampachi, farm Kampachi in particular, is ceviche because it's too
Because-
fatty, and you will need too much lemons to be able to cut through the fat of the fish.
Interesting.
So something with a little bit less fat makes much better ceviche.
Does Ninoy make a good ceviche?
Oh, it's my favorite right now.
What is that?
Yeah, because it's just depends on how you. We're learning how to raise it, so it depends on where you hit the different types of feeds and whatnot. I have come down to like a couple of combinations that are like, okay, you're just the right amount of fat without like being too
Perfect.
fatty and stuff like that.
Oh, interesting.
And I make ceviche out of that, and it's like, well, it's one of my favorites.
Interesting. Okay, we're gonna heat this up, and then we're gonna get this ready.
Oh, curry and fish, this is so good.
Okay. Put this on the side. So what we've done is just sauteed that fish, and we put a little bit of the Japanese curry with some carrots. Let's try this, if it works, that combination of this oily fish with some sweet curry, because this curry has some apples and honey. So just that combination.
This is really good.
Good.
I have had green curry fish before.
Yeah, in Thailand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
made with albacore, but
Yeah.
this is
Usually-
really, really good.
Excellent.
All right.
Daren, thank you so much for your time. I know you work in Kona, and your boss has said you can come here to talk about it, because this is such a wonderful, I get so intrigued talking to you
Yeah,
about marine, all the marine things you do.
you're welcome to stop by our facility when I'm
Thank
there,
you.
and I'll be happy to show you around.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching the Audrey Wilson Cooking Show. Until next time, aloha.
Aloha, everybody.
When you want a great meal, local style, turn on the Leo and sit a while. Watch and listen, then you'll know just how to do it on Audrey Wilson's Cooking Show.
The preceding program was a production of Naleo TV.